This podcast may contain adult themes and triggering topics. Please be kind to yourself if you get triggered by what we discuss.
Also, this isn't a substitute for therapy or counseling. Please listen to the appendix at the end for some of our recommendations for resources that will help you find a qualified mental health care provider.
Now, we take you to a time in the near future where emotional abuse has been appropriately deemed a crime, and the survivors find a home to reclaim their lives and freedom. This is Haven, and these are the stories of the Reclaimers.
I call these proceedings to order. Order! Now, before we begin this afternoon, it is my sad responsibility to accept the resignation of Senator Dawn Alcorn from this committee. And we understand that she will be doing another live stream with the President immediately following this session to answer questions regarding her seat in the Senate and her actions with the War Crimes Tribunal. While this committee cannot comment on Senator Alcorn's involvement in the military or intelligence matters, we can comment on the faithful service she has provided this committee. Her efforts and dedication will be missed.
Where is Alcorn? I can't see her.
She's there right behind Westlee.
As the remaining city committee members, Senator Gold and I asked Senator Dalton to stand in for our review process so that we could have a required number of members for a vote. The committee has reviewed the evidence, information, and motions presented by both committee members and witnesses. Now, there are 3 items of business for this committee to address at this time. 1, the consent practices of the Federal Reclamation Center. 2, Dr. Kalassi's actions towards the survivor known as KH. And 3, the committee's recommendation about the status of the center as a line item on the justice reform budget. To item number 1. The argument was laid out by Senator Daniels and Mr. Bradford Benedict regarding a lack of scope and oversight of the consent practices at the Federal Reclamation Center. Now, after careful review, this committee could find no evidence to back up this claim. In fact, Mr. Benedict himself argued that both Directors Dr. Soleil and Dr. Kalassi maintain careful training for advocates and appropriate boundaries with survivors regarding consent. It is our finding that the consent practices are reliably executed, with a few and rare exceptions, and that the current handbook, ethical guidelines, and governing bodies in place to investigate and handle such exceptions are also reliable and secure.
Pheeny!
Yes, I heard it too. Reliable and secure. I heard it.
Further, we find no fault or irresponsibility in how Drs. Soleil and Kalassi have handled advocate mistakes as regards to consent. The directors continue to evaluate best practices so that survivors may have the permission needed to pursue healing in an environment that returns control to those survivors. As is the point of the Reclamation Center to begin with.
I feel like I can breathe.
Like the air is fresh and clean, and there's so much of it.
As to the second matter at hand, Senator Gold.
Thank you, Senator. It is the finding of this committee that Dr. Kalassi's actions towards the survivor known as KH should be discharged from this inquiry and referred to the Federal Reclamation Center's own Security Council for evaluation and subsequent actions, should such action be needed.
Oh, my sweets, look at her. She's crying with relief.
This is better than we could have dreamed. The Security Council will be fair. Fair is all that's needed.
Finally, as pertains to the line item status of the Federal Reclamation Center, it is the finding of this committee that the center, known also as the Haven, provides a service to our community that deserves a permanent place in the official budget as overseen by this committee. Thus, the committee recommends the line item status with full support from the entire sitting committee. Due to existing budgetary constraints, the recommended amount of the line item will be less than was originally assigned by the committee 5 years ago. It is my happy responsibility to notify the directors and Oversight Committee members that the amount can be appealed upon findings of extenuating need or other such legal motions that would require an immediate reassessment. On a final note, the committee members welcome Senator Amelia Gold to the role of ranking senior member. We are grateful for her service. Now, as that is all our business, this inquiry is concluded and this committee stands adjourned.
We need to celebrate!
And how? This is amazing news!
Persy, over here!
Are you pleased with the outcome, Persy?
It feels unreal. I can't believe it's Alcorn. Wait, where is she?
Presser, remember? She's gonna be outside with the president!
Oh, should we go see if we could catch a glimpse?
Truman, if we go out there, you know Westlee will introduce us.
Really? I don't know whether to go or not then. I
Go!
mean, should
We should always go! But first, where should I meet you all for dinner on Friday?
Our place. I'm gonna cook and everything.
Truman, Sonia, I never dreamed.
I told you, Persy. Only my best. And gotta keep Truman in line too, so he gives you his best.
Worst. I plan to give Persy my worst.
You're just being contradictory now.
No, I'm not. I'm truly being sincere. It's really a thing. Why does no one ever believe me when I try to be sincere?
I believe you. And forevermore, I'll be expecting your worst, Truman. And I promise to give you my worst in return. Thank you.
I have no idea what you two are talking about, but I'm getting Truman's undying need to laugh about it with you before he explains it to me.
You know me so well.
All part of the service, punk face.
Someone is feeling relieved and happy and joyful.
I saved a survivor. I didn't ruin the Haven, and we took down a monster. So yeah, I think relieved and joyful is warranted.
Come on, let's go meet a president. Wait, Persy, does this mean you're not resigning?
No. How could I? I can't leave that place to you two just yet.
Then yeah, relieved and joyful is definitely warranted.
Pheeny, you all right?
Maybe?
We have some things to discuss.
Of course. Congratulations, Persy. You deserve this. You both do.
Thank you, Sonia.
Persy, that cop-out gratitude that you're having right now,
Excuse me?
that whole, you're trying to give away the credit for taking that nozzle down and covering it with gratitude about all we did to help. Don't you dare try to hand that back to Truman and me like you have to do it alone to deserve the win. Persephone, you've given this triumphant moment to hundreds of others, including me. Dang it, Persy, you're gonna take it for yourself this time. Don't let me down.
Only my best for you, fellow warrior.
Now who's being contradictory?
Nope, accountable. I'm good at that. Holding people accountable. Truman, are you coming or not?
Persy, are we okay to stay in here? It seems to be clearing out.
I asked Gold to clear the room for us.
Okay, good. Pheeny, I'm getting the shock. Is this the best time for you and Persy to talk? Or should we get you home?
I don't know. Everything I thought I knew is, well, it's not what I thought it was.
Of course. Percy's been holding on to secrets that are... No. I want you to tell me how you describe them.
They're impossible to understand. During the last part of Percy's testimony, all I could think was, I don't even know this person. And now, I realize how much I've said that this year. All these years. I can't. I can't go back to that frustration. At lunch, Truman asked me how I would handle this as your advo. how I would have handled a case file like this. Oh, that? It's easy. I can think clearly when it's someone else. The survivor needs a lot of support. The survivor needs to tell her story on her terms, repeatedly if necessary, because of the complex nature of the manipulation and abuse. She needs to work through the tools with careful guidance. Her deception was because of the double bind she was in, and so she'll need to work on being visible to those around her to combat the habit of hiding her pain. Hiding her pain. I have said that hundreds of times in hundreds of intakes meetings. The survivor has hidden her pain. Well, I get why the survivor did it this way. I get why the abuse causes that level of hiding. I get it with every other survivor. But this is not any other survivor.
She's your best friend.
Yes, and I'm more than her best friend. I'm her advocate. But then I feel like I should apologize for feeling angry when you're in pain. You've been in so much pain for so long, and the enforced silence just made the pain worse. But then this morning, Persy, you were so brave. You took on a malignant narcissist, and you won. You won, Persy. He's gone, and he's not coming back. Every heightened in the room can vouch for what he did to Alcorn in front of the Empath Council. But in that win, I still feel like we lost, you and I. We've lost us. Who we were before that damned encampment. I don't know what we do to recover from any of this.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Please don't apologize.
I hurt you.
Yes, but look at everything you were going through.
In the never-ending story, the Nothing ravages Fantastica. How did Bastion recover?
He rebuilds.
By giving himself permission to need help. And learning how to rely on his best friend.
Pheeny, I want to rely on you. I do. And I made you a promise.
What promise?
After that first session with Truman, when I told him about the telepaths, I promised you I'd share everything with you. Because you deserve more consideration than any other person in my life. Because you've been there for me in ways no one else ever has.
Not even me.
I told her she should make you the priority today.
She did. She told me everything at lunch.
Everything?
What I testified this morning wasn't the whole story.
There's more?
Yeah. And it's finally time for me to make good on my promise.
That means it's time for me to go. But before I do, I don't know that I've ever said this to you, Pheeny. I wouldn't have ever met Persephone if you hadn't saved her. You really have been there for her in ways no one else could. And because of that, you've been there for me in ways I didn't know I needed. You made Persephone and Attie possible, and I owe you for that. And you owe yourself. You owe it to yourself to work through the feelings you're having right now.
Oh, I'm okay. It'll be...
I was almost alarmingly angry at Persy during lunch. It's not something you can just advo your way through. This one's personal. You know, my advo trainer was just the best. Light of 1,000 suns. And he taught me something, that emotions are signals. Anger is a signal that you need protection. You deserve to have your feelings, Pheeny. She needs to stop hiding her pain. You need to stop hiding your anger. I'm gonna let you two talk. Why don't you sit and I'll go make sure Gold's posted security like she promised.
Thanks, Attie. I didn't know how much I needed to hear that.
How much you've helped us?
No. That someone else is as angry with Persy as I am.
Good. You're ready.
I love you, Attie. Thank you.
Love you too. No, nothing blocks, okay? You promised.
Yes. How much is too much to tell you?
I'm determined to hear everything. This has kept us apart for too long.
All right. After I got back from the encampment and all that tension we had fall semester and our fight.
Oh, yes. The fight.
It seemed like the fight was about you contacting your dad, but I was pushing you away, not consciously.
This was during the time when Daniels was still doing the testing on... with... you?
That stopped in October. But then Dawn and I had these weekly follow-ups about the reports I had to submit to the tribunal. During those meetings, she confided that her husband was dying.
Oh, that's right. The original Senator Alcorn. His death was so sad.
Yes. After the fight, Dawn invited me to her place to help her care for the senator, and so I wouldn't have to stay on campus alone during the break.
Persy, stop. I need to... I felt really bad about that fight. I know you were just trying to protect me, and I made it into a big thing.
No, it wasn't your fault. I didn't know how to be close to anybody then. Fighting with you felt like the safest option to protect you from all the trauma bonds and emotion I was drowning in all the time.
I'm not sure how to handle this.
Phoenix, it truly wasn't your fault. And I never told you that before.
No, not that. It's just, you're so, open right now. There's not a block in sight, and it feels like the sun coming out after a dark storm.
Well, hang in there with me. You may wish for a block in a minute.
I can hear it. If we have any hope of moving forward, I need to hear it.
Thanks. Over the break, Don was caught up in caring for the senator, handling his responsibilities. I had no research or reports or anything for the first time in 3 years. I had nothing to do. Just drive myself crazy all day, every day, trying to maintain no contact. All I wanted to do, desperately, was reach out to Mycroft. I was trauma bonded. Bad. And it was the hardest thing I have ever done, keeping hold of my sanity during that time. By January, I'd used up all my willpower. I had nothing left. I felt like a hollow shell of myself.
So, that's why you were just so avoidant the first week of January?
I was scared you'd read me and see how addicted I was to Mycroft. He'd accused me of needing him too much, and at that point, I believed that I was a burden, that I was just too much for anyone.
Then the avoiding me, it wasn't about the fight?
No, not at all.
Okay, because I was convinced I'd driven you away. I thought I'd failed you. I blamed myself for hurting you, and I thought I'd lost you for good.
No, I was lost to myself. But lost to you? No, that wasn't your fault. Ever. I'm sorry, old friend. Oh, you worried about that for all this time, thinking it was you.
All this telepathy, and we can still miscommunicate with each other.
Wow. Phoenix, it wasn't your fault.
Thanks. Okay, go on. I want to hear everything.
By mid-January, I was a wreck. I couldn't eat. I could barely go to class. I was still gutted over the 13, feeling like I'd failed you and them and everyone. And Mycroft's discard at the encampment was so cruel. Everything hurt. Every piece of my life on that campus had been invaded by him, so everything reminded me of him. The tense stuff with you, the isolation at Dawn's, trying to look normal for classes. By January 22nd, I was too weakened by all the demands, and I went to see him.
That's why you missed Ashley's birthday? You broke no contact?
I did. I still feel all that shame and guilt. I felt like a failure. Look what I'd become. I felt awful when I was around him, and yet here I was going to see him. That shocks you.
Not in the way you think. It's just that I'm supposed to be this expert in trauma bonds. And hearing you, I mean, you're Persy. You're the strength, the stubborn, the one who just bosses everyone around. But there you were, feeling completely overpowered by... To hear that you felt like you couldn't prevent yourself from breaking no contact, these are the parts of the story where I feel like I didn't know you.
And I think we need to get clear on that part. You didn't know me. The me that came back from the encampment, you didn't know that person, Phoenix. And that's not your fault, because I didn't let you know that person. And to be fair, I wasn't really me anyway. I was made of guilt, made of shame. The me that came back was made of Mycroft's conditioning and manipulation.
Wow. All that pain.
Would it help if I block it?
No more blocks, Persy. It's not protecting me when you go dark like that. The distance between us has been...
I'm getting that pain too. I'm sorry I blocked you. I thought that I was...
You thought you were protecting me from seeing how hurt you were.
Yes. But the price was too high for the protection I was hoping to achieve.
I understand. Wait. Oh, I'm getting that. Shame. Persy, of course you would want to win him over again. That's what trauma bonds are there to do. He wanted you to feel like you would do anything.
I was ready to beg. On my knees, even.
And did he make you do that? Oh, Pers, this humiliation you feel, you know it's not yours, right?
Logically, yes. But the trauma bonds are still raw. He was so obviously pleased with my humiliation. But he said all the same things. He'd accepted my apologies, said that he didn't think he could trust me after all I'd done, all the ways I disobeyed him, all the times I'd hurt him. My thoughts kept swirling back and forth between, he did this, he made me into this, and I have to be healthy. I have to apologize and take responsibility. It was so confusing. All the while, he was baiting me to use the refusal, to cross his line of consent so that he could start reading me. But I wouldn't, and I could tell that angered him. It took him 3 hours to detail out everything I'd done wrong. All the ways I'd manipulated him. All the things I'd done that meant I didn't deserve a second chance. He said that my apologies were meaningless.
You went to him to apologize, and what reason did he give for saying your apologies were meaningless?
He didn't. I never really got that until now.
Well, of course you wouldn't. You were blinded by all his intense conditioning, the imbalance of the power dynamic. He'd made you into a dependent, a child even. He treated you like...
Should we stop?
No, I want to hear everything. I need to hear it.
Okay. He said that from then on, he would never again be beholden to me and my enormous needs. No more 18-hour days in the lab. No more working on projects, no matter how much I begged.
He is the one that demanded the 18-hour days to begin with. Oh, the cruelty of that projection is just intolerable. You were so patient with him. You gave him so much time, Persy. Where's Westlee when I need a bad enough name to call him? What did you say to all that?
I'm ashamed to tell you.
It's common for survivors to apologize to their abusers.
Yeah. At one point, I remember looking down at my hands and thinking, these are the hands of an abuser. And I hated everything about myself in that moment. I'd murdered 13 people. I'd participated in bonding them to me, using their refusal to violate their innermost trust. And now, this man, my mentor, he felt beholden to me. I loathed myself.
Persy, stop for a minute. You're going back there, mentally blending with the past. I need you to stay here with me, okay? I need you to be safe. Just stay here right now. You don't have to go back there to tell me what happened. I want to hear this, and you deserve to have support and peace while you confront this.
Yes, of course.
No, not that. Don't shame yourself for going back there, okay? That's a totally natural response. It makes sense your brain would try to do that for you. But stay here in the present with me. It's okay to share the trauma. It's okay to observe it. I just don't want you to relive it, to do it all alone again. We're here together. You deserve to have support.
Good call. Okay, I'm here.
Keep going. I'm listening.
I knew he was getting supply from how awful I felt. And I didn't care. He said that I'd need to keep things civil with him, prove myself.
Oh, of course. Because heaven forbid you should react to the abuse in any way. How exactly would you keep things civil?
He wouldn't say. But he did say that it was time for me to go.
Oh, that's quite a bundle of emotions there.
Yeah. I can still feel that confusion. He was saying it would be different, that we couldn't see each other that often so he could protect himself from me. But he was okay with me helping out at the lab. But he wouldn't put me on the schedule. The confusion felt almost more painful than a flat rejection.
Of course it did. Oh, your abuser was using a lack of communication to spike your anxiety.
I get it now. Yes. But at the time, I knew I needed to work harder to win his approval. So I went back to my room to wait.
Do you hear that? He sent you to your room.
Yes. In hindsight, I see how parental it was. And it felt familiar, too. Almost comforting to have him act that way.
Dare I ask how long he made you wait?
I got a message from him the Wednesday before President's Day.
That was, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
So wait, Ashley's birthday to President's Day. You told me you were working on an encampment report during that time.
I was. I just let you think I was working on it with him.
Persephone. He made you think you had murdered 13 people and you managed 3 weeks of isolated confinement after a Hoover attempt that humiliated you? With no communication from him. And you did that completely alone?
It was okay. I was desperate to prove that I wasn't a burden. So I had things to do. I was writing a report for Dawn, and I cleaned my room. I went to class every day. I tried to sleep. I hydrated. I ate a little. I needed to prove that I could be independent.
Alone, Persy. You were in detox alone. And I was right there the whole time.
Yes. But Pheeny, you didn't know. I didn't have words to tell you what he was doing. I didn't even understand it myself. I thought it was my fault. I thought I deserved it.
Then what happened? You got the message, and then what?
In the message, he said he'd be sending me a package, a new assignment from the War Crimes Tribunal. I needed to follow the instructions he sent with it. The package was waiting for me when I got back from class that Friday.
What was it?
It was a verified digidoc.
Verified? Like...
Yes, like the Black Ops files at the Haven.
What were the instructions?
He said... The instructions said that the digidoc contained the tribunal's leftover identifying information for the 13. And for the protection and safety of all involved, I needed to destroy it without looking at it. Not just the content, the physical digidoc itself. I had to imprint in order to get the instructions. And then I verified the singular status.
Right. Those things are impossible to duplicate.
Yes. So I waited until campus was dark for the holiday weekend. And I went to the South Lab. And I got the blowtorch. And I used it to destroy the digidoc. I admit,
It was satisfying to see the little quantum filaments popping as they burned. The tiny blue fires made me feel like there was hope. I was on my way to being reinstated on Mycroft's team. And then perhaps he could lift the restrictions on my publishing things for the department, and maybe I could be healthy. And more, maybe I could work with you on research. The hope was like a crumb of bread in a famine.
Oh, I would have loved a chance to research together.
That was why I felt so incredible that weekend. Even though I was alone, there was hope. The instructions said that Alcorn would visit me to go over next steps. She got there Saturday afternoon. I was researching for the reform paper I'd put down and her team arrived. They posted outside and she came in, asking for the digidoc. I was completely confused.
Oh no.
Right. She showed me the instructions she'd received from Mycroft. In those instructions, he said he'd gotten the info we needed to protect the families of the 13. And that he was sending the info directly to me to hold for her arrival. Her instructions said nothing about destroying anything.
Oh, no.
I told her that I'd destroyed the digidoc. She demanded to see my instructions, and that's when I realized those instructions were stored on the digidoc.
Oh, Persy.
Yeah. She was really angry at first. She was convinced I'd misunderstood.
I'm getting that despair. That's still strong, even now. Something about hiding something from Gold and Alcorn during the inquiry this morning?
I couldn't let them ask about I'd bonded to those 13 recruits just as much as they'd bonded to me. I loved them, Pheeny. And telling them that they'd never see their families again. And that shattered me. The only thing I had to give them was a promise that I would keep their family safe. And after all the intel those 13 heroes had gathered during the war, they'd made too many enemies. I gave them the most solemn promise I could, each one of them, that I would protect their families. So when Alcorn told me that was the only copy...
You thought everything was lost. You couldn't keep your promise to protect them.
Yes. I'd never even be able to find them. After every other way we'd failed them, I was going to fail them in the worst way imaginable.
Persy, I can tell you're trying to make it easier to hear. You don't have to. I can handle it.
I'm trying to make it even possible to say the words.
That's understandable. You've held on to this alone for so long.
I'm sorry.
No apologies for having feelings.
You're right.
So, Alcorn was angry, and how did you two leave things?
She finally left after a long talk. I was certain she'd never forgive what I'd done. All that night and the next day, I ruminated, and I made a plan to go directly to Mycroft and find out where he'd gotten the list. I was so resolute. I even thought, in my madness, that I would use the refusal against him, try to break him down enough to confess, since I wasn't in any place I could read him.
That's a lot of guilt.
Something in me broke that weekend.
The hurt.
Yeah. And in the break, I found the Persephone stubborn. The place inside me that would never yield to someone like him again. The place where red flags became lights in the dark. The place where hell couldn't hold me. And yet...
I'm getting that. You worried that he had some hand in creating that strength?
A little. Yes. He took credit for so many of my successes. During testing, he repeated that thought at me, ensuring I could read it even through the trauma bonds. The thought that I wouldn't be as strong without him there pushing me.
Do you believe that?
Part of me did, for a very long time. longer than I want to admit. Part of me is still afraid to go near it. What if I find weakness underneath? Would that make him right?
The shame is back. You went to see him?
Yes. And the shame is... It's about the... I did use the refusal. I violated his consent so I could try to control him somehow.
Did you find what he knew?
See, what you're asking is, was it really worth it to violate that line? And no, it wasn't. Because though I couldn't read his thoughts, I could use my empathy. He believed. He truly believed that he'd sent me the instructions telling me to hold the digidock for Alcorn. He was genuinely surprised that I destroyed.
Oh, Persy, I am so sorry.
He wasn't just happy this time. He was victorious. He'd gotten everything. I was completely conditioned to believe I was at fault for the lives of 13 people. 13 innocents. I was miserably attached to him. He could count on the ongoing emotional supply from my guilt over destroying the documents. I couldn't read him because of the trauma bonds, and I'd used the refusal after I told him I never would again. I was completely decimated.
Okay, now that bundle I know. This is familiar. This is where your nothing blocks usually settle in. What's that bundle?
He said that it would be a shame if anyone ever heard about the 13 or the destroyed records or any of it from me, because they might be led to believe that you and I were both involved, with how close we were.
He threatened me using our friendship so you would...
Stay silent. Yes. So I'd never put his reputation and good name at risk? Yes.
Persephone, you believed if you came forward, he'd... what?
That was the ace he held. He had Alcorn's VidCon. He played the first few moments of it for me. She was still angry that I'd destroyed the documents. She stated that she believed I was trying to cover up my involvement. That was the last nail in my coffin. He said if I even breathed a word of this to anyone, I'd never work in the psych field again, and neither would you. His list was damning. I'd released classified information to war criminals, disobeyed a direct order, failed the heightened testing I was trained to easily complete, and manipulated 13 people to their death. He was threatening to tie you to those actions. And with the smear campaign he was running on campus about you at the time, I believed him. My actions had already destroyed your chance to publish that year.
No, Persy. He destroyed those chances. You had nothing to do with that.
At the time, I didn't know that. He also made it clear that if I spoke up, I'd be putting the 13 at risk. Because if I spoke up, there'd be an interrogation. And even if Mycroft and Dawn kept silent, who knew what public attention would be drawn to the identities of the 13? Who knew what bit of information could be found to identify their families? I knew then that he held all the cards. I left his office that day very clear on his power and the consequences to my speaking up. And I knew I needed to get you away from Mycroft, to find an alternate to Yale.
Can you finally tell me how you pulled that off?
I did one smart thing. I recorded the conversation in Mycroft's office. When I played it for Dawn, she got it. She finally understood. So she called in a favor with Dalton. Remember, he donated all that money to the extrasensory lab at Stanford? So she and Dalton got me over to Stanford the next day to meet with the director of the lab.
You gave him the data you'd been collecting with Daniels, didn't you?
Only the non-classified data. But I also explained the extrasensory value of what I'd been trained to do. I demonstrated my gift, and I offered to play lab rat.
You what?
I told the director he could test my gift and add it to their data. I would be their subject. The director said my gift was extraordinary, both the distance tricks and the broadcasting. He looked like the paper would practically publish itself.
I made it a condition of my acceptance that they consider a transfer of your scholarships to give you the full ride you'd already earned for Yale. I showed them the research system you'd invented. They eagerly began putting together all sorts of offers to tempt you.
You did the testing right then?
No. That was my summer job. That was why I couldn't go with you and your moms and Ashley to the beach house.
Persy, when you talk about this, there's a...
It's okay. You can say it. I felt ashamed. I hated testing with Mycroft. But the testing at Stanford felt worse because I'd chosen to do it. It felt like I was selling my telepathy, you know?
It saved us both. That's not shameful. That's courageous.
You really believe that? I can't believe you see it that way.
How could I not? If you heard that Sonia did that for Truman, you'd think Sonia was courageous for doing what was needed to save her friend from a very real threat. Old friend, thank you. I had no idea the acceptance came at that cost.
It was the least I could do. There's one last part. In the fall, just before school started, I got a VidCon transfer from Mycroft. It was a proposal. The proposal was a pilot program using research from his time with me. He listed me as subject P11. And in these reports, P11 had a personality disorder and had demonstrated abusive behavior. He, as the clinician, had heroically used contra-manipulation to get P11 to finally admit her many wrongdoings. He used this to show that he could get criminals to confess. He wanted to launch a pilot program to teach heightened police officers and FBI agents how to extract confessions from criminals. Now that heightened gifts were part of the population, these predators had new ways to gain control. His argument for this whole proposal rested on using the refusal, violating consent.
Bullshit.
Because I'd spent the summer away from him, I was finally strong enough to see through his manipulations. But getting that proposal was a real gut punch. His descriptions hurt, created fresh wounds over the healing ones.
And this was the first week of school?
Yes. He called the whole thing Operation Tiger.
That's Operation Tiger?
Yes. As the volunteer subject, he was required by the review board to give me clearance to see his findings. But it was still classified, so I couldn't tell anybody. Even you. The maze was complete. The demon had won. I'm proud of myself that I never responded. Instead, I got busy.
Justice reform.
Yeah.
I always wondered why you were moving so fast, why we had to pitch to everyone so quickly.
I had to get them to see that a new war would be on the horizon if we weren't careful. Imagine what narcissists and psychopaths could have done with Mycroft's system in place.
Were you still doing testing with the extrasensory lab?
Yeah. That whole year.
No wonder you were so frenetic.
I don't know what I would have done without you. The tools, how you just held the reality whenever I lost it. There were unexpected triggers around every corner that year.
But you still did it. You lobbied and rallied and completed schoolwork and wrote laws and argued with Alcorn. I am stunned. To know the whole picture, to really see everything you were dealing with, I don't think impressed covers it. I have never respected you more.
Oh, Phoenix. Hold off on that, okay? Because there's the story part, and then there's...
The next part. What's that?
It's the part where I apologize to you.
If you're going to try to apologize for
No.
what he did...
No. The first tool we ever developed won't let me.
Sort it out.
Yes. I've had a bit of time
to sort out what was his in all this mess, and what was mine. And what was mine. I could have come to you after the winter holiday. I could have told you I was scared. I could have asked for your help in staying no contact, and instead, I went to him. And if I hadn't gone to him, who knows what safety and closure and healing we could have offered the families of the 13. So that's mine.
You were trauma bonded, and you didn't know.
I've thought a lot about that, Pheeny. And I was both. I was trauma bonded and felt out of control, yes. And I had a choice. I let my pride get in the way. I let everything be about that fight between us, and I should have just brought it all to you. I should have trusted you. I'm so sorry.
You know, if you were any other survivor, I'd push you to accept that, how did you say it to Ben? That trauma bonds make you do stupid things. Very, very stupid things.
I admit that trauma bonds played a part.
Okay, I can accept that. I think part of healing from this, for both of us, is to allow you to apologize for your part. I trust you to know what was yours and what was his.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I accept your apology. I forgive you.
For a lifetime of keeping this from you. For how much pain this has caused you.
Yes.
And for dragging you into a life of lobbying, advocacy, defending the Haven.
Oh, yeah, just the worst possible life, my hell.
What about for making you co-director instead of director?
That's too far. Now that I will never forgive.
Thank you. Just saying this all out loud feels...
I know.
Stole my line.
Wait, Persy, Ben found the addenda.
What?
Persephone, Ben found a copy of the addenda. The one you destroyed? Ben found a copy in Daniel's vault.
I don't understand.
Well, that means Daniels was lying to you that day. When you went to confront him, if he was truly intending for you to not destroy it, I mean, digidocs are just impossible to duplicate. He must have gone through all sorts of time and effort and black ops tech stuff to keep a copy before he ever sent it to you. Why do that if he intended you to keep it? No, he meant for you to destroy it.
He lied.
He lied.
Then I didn't... It wasn't my misunderstanding.
He lied to you, Persephone. He lied, no matter how it looked when you read him.
He lied.
He wanted you to misunderstand. What else? If it was a lie, what else did he want?
He wanted me to blame myself.
That monster wanted you to punish yourself. What else?
He wanted me to give up.
Give up on what, Persy?
To give up on myself. To give up on trying to fight him.
And did you?
No. No. I didn't give up.
No matter what.
He did his worst.
And you didn't give up. You're here. You made it. You survived to take him down.
We survived to take him down, old friend.
Yes. We survived. I'm getting that. Put it all together. I can see you breaking through trauma mind as we speak. Say it, old friend.
There's just... For years, I thought that it was my choice to tell the 13 about holding them. And so they died. I made a choice and that killed them. And then I made a series of choices that made it so I couldn't keep my promise to them to protect their families. You thought the avoidance after winter break was your fault. You thought you were to blame for blocks between us, and here we are. None of that was true. Everything I thought was mine, everything you thought was yours, was actually Mycroft's. It was calculated. All along, it was calculated.
I've never acknowledged how wounded I've been by the division between us. It's helpful to see it in context.
So, what you said earlier about how we recover from here.
I've been thinking about that as we've been talking, and I'd like to ask for two things.
If it will help us recover, I'm there. What can I do?
I need no more secrets. I can't take the nothing anymore. I don't have the stubborn to fight it.
I promise. No more black ops between us. Ever again.
Ever, ever, ever again. Thank you.
Of course. And the second?
I want you to have regular sessions until you've dealt with all this. This has shaped and defined your life.
Our lives. And you didn't have a choice. I didn't give you a choice.
We did the best we could with the limited choices we both had.
Yes. And yes, I'll have weekly sessions with... Well, we'll find someone.
It's not that I don't want to be your advocate now. It's that you need to be able to say things without worrying about preserving my feelings. You need to put the focus on you so you can heal.
You really are the goodest, Pheeny. Thank you. I will.
Okay then, we need a break.
Says who?
Says me.
By what right?
I am your friend.
And I will always be yours.
Let's have dinner delivered to my place. We'll let Dion and the girls play, all right? Attie and Ashley can bond over wine, and you and I can just sit on the back porch and watch the stars come out.
That sounds heavenly. Just the paradise the Advo ordered.
Good. Maybe you'll start letting me boss you around for a change?
Yeah. I can let you think that for a night. That'll be a good break for both of us. Hey, it's Persy and Pheeny here. What you've just heard is a work of fiction, but we know that many listeners are living in a world of pain that isn't fictional at all.
At the end of every episode, we're going to include an appendix of sorts. Some things we hope will serve those who live with the reality of fear and pain every day.
First, we want to let you know about our website, www.empowering.tools, where we keep an ongoing list of books, websites, hotlines, and many other resources for victims and survivors of toxic relationships.
Second, we love to hear from you. If you'd like to share your story with us or let us know how the episode impacted you, we'd love for you to reach out. These are deeply emotional things, and we want to give you a chance to share. We're a small team, so an in-depth response isn't always possible, but we do read every message we receive.
Third, if you're in crisis or you need to find an immediate way out, please call 800-799-7233 for the National Domestic Abuse Hotline. If your abuser is a parent or a non-romantic relationship, there are other resources we've listed on the website that are just for you.
A reminder, emotional violence is still violence. You don't need to have bruises on your body to deserve help, and it's okay to feel what you're feeling when you call.
Fourth, be safe. For some, getting out will take planning and time. If you know you need help, do what you need in order to safely get away.
Lastly, we know how difficult it can be to believe there's hope on the other side of a toxic relationship.
Many on our team know the devastatingly difficult steps it takes to get away from an abusive predator.
But there is hope. You don't have to do it alone. If you don't have supportive family or friends, you can still find support at the hotlines we mentioned earlier or at a local hospital or shelter.
Thousands of survivors have made it out. Getting out and reclaiming your freedom can be your story.
We believe in you.
We believe in your future.
And we believe in your right to that freedom.